Hey, this is Scott.
Hey, Scott, it's the city of Moore.
Oh, hey, thanks for calling back.
Oh, sure, you're welcome. I'm intrigued.
Well, not so fast. I need a favor. I've got a Gen X podcast about growing up in Moore.
Cool.
I just want to know, is there an archivist for the city or anybody that can...
No, no.
There's not. Well, I've got a story I'm trying to get anybody to corroborate. We walked from East Hills to Draper Lake.
I do remember in the 70s we did something similar, and we swam on Thunderbird Lake. Our swim team did, and they thought it would be a good idea to test our stamina, to take a boat out and drop us off in the middle of the lake, and then we had to swim to the shore.
What was wrong with us?
I don't know, but look at us now.
Well, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but it was over 40 years ago. Let's do it. All right, Eddie, I got one for you this week.
What do we got?
Well, I have, in our first episode, Jed and I beat to death childhood fundraisers, but there's a little life left. There was one that I left out because it required its own show.
Okay, if we go back to the one with you and Jed, I learned a life lesson from that show because that's the one where you had a buddy where the candy bars were $1 each, and he sold them for $2 each, and kept the. And I'm like, I didn't even know that was possible. It opened up a whole new world for me, Scott. So thank you.
That's close. He gave them to his dad to take to GM where he worked, and take them to the break room and sell them for $2 a piece. So he didn't do a thing.
Yes, even better.
So I know that people our age drone on and on to the youngins about how we had it different and it was tougher back then and we liked it and blah, blah, blah. And I think there's enough truth there to where, I get how that's got to be tedious to hear from Gen Z and millennials, but let me pile on here. All right. So first of all, I got several notes to the Facebook page or messages and the phone number that appears there. People have called in. I've got a couple of voicemails. And I asked a question on Facebook recently to people back home if they remember a particular fundraiser that we had in the early 80s. And I got a couple of bites. So let me get into this. When I think I was in the third grade, I've done process of elimination to get to this. I think it's third grade. It could be second grade. The year we moved to Oklahoma from Dixie.
What year would that be?
We moved after my first grade year. So it was 1979.
79.
And we moved to essentially a prairie field. They were building houses in that part of Moore. There was new construction everywhere. So eventually it became a neighborhood. All right. Like I said, I think it's the third grade. I think this would have been 1980 or 1981. More public schools thought it was a good idea to essentially recreate the Trail of Tears. There's a street in Moore called 4th Street. And by the railroad tracks, there was the metal building. And like I said, the town was expanding so much back then that they had this annex, this building, and they just put up partitions inside and made little classrooms there. So my second grade year was spent in a metal barn.
Was it air conditioned? Okay.
Oh yeah, it was.
Okay.
So we had that. So it was, now it's where they park all the trucks and they keep equipment out there and I don't know, crates of chalk. Maybe that's where they keep the chalk. I don't know, but it's the public schools uses it. Well, it was called East Hills. It's by railroad tracks. Not far from I-35. Well, they decided, you know what, we're going to have a walk-a-thon. We're going to raise money. From what I can gather, it's for the schools rather than March of Dimes or Lung Association or anything like that. So it's for the schools. So someone in this school system, some higher up, perhaps superintendent, somebody, said, I got a great idea. Let's get all the kids from all the schools, put them at East Hills, and they'll walk to Draper Lake as a fundraiser. Now, you're not from Oklahoma, and so let me give you a little context here. Draper Lake at the time, well, they haven't moved the lake, but you go. Well, the reason I say that is because you can't get to it now. I'll explain that in a second. 4th Street at East Hills was, from what I can tell from Google Earth, about 6.5 miles from the area of the lake where we walked to. And of course, we walked back. I can't find any newspaper clipping. I've gone to the Oklahoma Historical Society, who has microfiche. Of all of these, the Moore, at the time it was called the Moore Monitor. I used to deliver papers for the Monitor. I've got a podcast episode coming up about that ridiculousness. So it's not in any of them. The Daily Oklahoman, the Norman Transcript, area larger papers that surrounded Moore. Not a peep. I'm not saying it was an official media blackout, but no one remembers this. I called this.
I want to make sure I'm grasping this correctly. So the entire thing with third graders, 6.5 miles there, 6.5 miles back, that's 13 miles for third graders?
Well, the third graders were the third graders. The second graders, whose parents hated them, were the second graders. There were high school kids, middle school kids. It was a public school deal. All the school kids went to this.
But 13 miles, that would be criminal.
Well, it was, it was a good way to get the kids out of the house, a little fresh air, make some money for the school. Everybody's happy.
Good gracious.
I can't imagine that happening now.
No, the most they'll do now is a 5K, which is really 3.2 miles. And if you did a 5K with 3.2 miles, you're still going to have kids wailing and screaming and crying and saying it was too long. So the difference between this is hard to believe.
My man, you don't know the half of it. Let me tell you.
All right, let's go.
So that Saturday morning, we get there. My sister and I show up, and I just remember I've got this little blue T-shirt on because I'm in the 3rd grade. It's Saturday morning. That's Super Friends time.
Yeah, you're missing cartoons. This is not right.
Yeah.
You should be sitting at home in front of the TV with a Tupperware bowl full of Lucky Charms.
Yes. Instead, I'm about to lose a couple of inches of shoe leather for forced not even child labor, just child nonsense. So we're all there, and we're milling around, and teachers are trying to find us, and every how do I put this? Every Subaru in the county was parked there because all the PE teachers were going to be at checkpoints along the way. So I remember telling my dad, we got out of the truck. It's a kind of a crisp morning, great for a walk, not to the state line, but it could have been a bad idea. So I didn't know anyone there. Like all the kids from my class wised up and said, well, I shan't be doing this.
I shan't be doing this.
So I'm there, and I remember turning to my dad saying, Dad, I don't know anybody. And it's all older kids. It's like middle school kids, that was my sister's age, the high school kids. And I see a couple of people that are like eye level to me, but they're elementary kids from other schools. I didn't know them. I found one person that was in my class. And then a couple more later in the day I saw. But again, how many kids are we talking about? 1,000? 700? I don't know. But I'll set the stage here. I told my dad, like emphatically, hey, I don't want to do this. Remember Young Frankenstein when they said, whatever I say, don't open this door?
Yes.
I was all about going. And then like, I don't want to go. We're still in the truck. Hey, Dad, I don't want to do this. Dad. So we get out. And so Dad, in 1980, I went. Just say that.
What time of year was this?
It had to be, I guess, the fall, because it was cool out and a little bit misty that morning, I can remember. Yeah, that's got to be. I think it was the fall. It could be spring. Heck, it could have been. Oklahoma weather's crazy. It could have been. Who knows? So here's the thing. His let's see, how old are you in the second grade? 7. I was 7.
Yeah.
And so his 7-year-old kid saying, "Hey, Dad, I don't want to do this." And it's not like today's language. I don't feel safe here, Dad. It was like, Dad, this is no. I don't want to do this. And so, Dad, I don't know. Maybe should have taken the cue. Like, you know what? This probably. I went. So let me share with you something here. I found by chance one of the only other people near my age in Moore, Oklahoma that remembers this. His name is Scott as well, and he was a classmate of my sister's. I told her the podcast that I was doing this episode, and she said, "I'll ask around." She remembers it vividly. Like we talked about it. And so she found a guy at her church, a guy named Scott Petit. He is now a teacher at the middle school where we came back to. We walked back to the middle school from that elementary school or from that annex. And so let you hear a little bit of a conversation I had with him. Scott, tell us the story, man. You as a student.
Well, I just remember when we were in elementary school that they asked us to get donations per mile, and we would walk from, at the time, was called East Hills Elementary. It was a metal building. I think it was a 5 mile walk or something. It was a 10 mile round trip, if I remember right. So
Well,
5 mile.
we walked straight down 4th Street to Draper Lake and back. I looked on the map. It's like 12 miles from Highland East. It's further if you go back to the railroad track. I cannot imagine that there was that old rickety wooden bridge
Yeah.
that crossed that creek.
And it was
And
a
like,
dirt road once you got past Highland East at that
I
time.
know, I know. So what are your memories of the walkathon? And do you remember what it was for? Was it March of Dimes or I don't know?
I thought it was a fundraiser for the school district, if I remember right.
Well, hey Scott, I did too, but it's not in old copies of the Moore Monitor, the Norman Transcript, or the Daily Oklahoman. It's like I don't think there was any kind of media blackout. I just don't
Yeah.
think our parents cared back then.
No,
I was,
it was the 70s and 80s. I mean,
I know,
we
I
rode our
was in
bikes
third.
everywhere.
Yeah, that's true. I was in the 3rd grade, and I left with a horde of kids
Yeah.
walking down 4th Street. And like you
Yeah.
said, it turns into woods and cow pastures and
Yeah.
finally to this big lake
Yeah.
where there was a big food fight and kids going nuts and running around. And they just kind of corralled us and walked us back to Highland East.
I thought we were going to the other side of the state, but I mean, of course, we were just walking out to the lake and back,
we're, we're
you
walking
know.
to Little Rock.
And people wouldn't think this, but it was a up and down kind of walk too, because it had a lot of hills in there.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was really, I mean, I just remember just walking out there and walking. It was just a time you had with your friends. And if I remember right, didn't we pack a sack lunch, or they
Yes,
gave
we
us a
did.
sack lunch or something like
But
that?
what they didn't say was the senior high kids will be coupling up and going out to the woods on the way, and people cow tipping and kids' feet bleeding and little kids crying and wandering around, and it was just a mess.
But if I remember right, wasn't there like 500 kids or 600 kids out there? We would
It
just be
seemed
walking.
like Woodstock, but everybody
Yeah,
was wearing garanimals and crying.
yeah. Well, I mean,
So
it was the 80s.
it was a mess. Who decided? You work for the schools. I know there's no way that happens today.
Oh no, no, that's a liability issue all the way around.
But who
Uh,
sits around at the city offices or the public school building? The superintendent says, "You know, what'd be a good idea? Get every kid in this city to walk across the county to a big lake, and
right,
maybe some of them will come back. I don't know."
right. Right.
All right.
It was just something that was, I think, of course, obviously it would never happen in today's world, but, you think back in just the time that we grew up. I mean, those are just things that we just did.
Yeah.
We'd walk to the skating rink. We'd walk to the,
Yeah. That's
you
true.
know,
Yeah.
we, we'd walk everywhere. We'd go ride our bikes everywhere, you know. we'd always be somewhere other than probably where we were supposed to be.
We were.
Yep,
It
that's
was,
true.
but
Yeah.
that's why we grew up so strong, because the weakest of us probably died.
Yep, that's true. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this.
Hey man, I appreciate the word. I know I'm not crazy. I knew somebody had to remember this.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, thanks, bud. I
All
appreciate you
right.
joining
Thank
us.
you. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, that was Scott Petite, and that's just give you a little insight. First of all, it serves two purposes. It lets you know I didn't dream this, and second, that my memories are pretty similar to his. It's 2 generations ago, so it's
Now
subject.
imagine if this happened today, because you'd have kids out there. I mean, I'm talking like kids your age that are in third grade with your, you know, version 16 iPhones live streaming as you're walking in the heat. You don't have any water. You're abandoned out there. It would be a completely different thing today. It would be absolutely recorded from the start to the end with everything on the in between. So there would be no, it would not disappear from the face of the world for the rest of time.
That's a good point. Now, I don't want to throw a bad light on all of this. I did have water when I got to the lake. They had one of those campground pump things, where you pull up on the handle and the water comes out. So I was able to get water after I walked the 6.5 miles to get to the lake.
Good
So I mean,
gracious.
I don't want to make it seem completely crazy, because back then people didn't just walk around. People weren't so thirsty. They didn't walk around with their own container of water like everybody does now.
Now, you said the PE teachers in their Subarus were at different stages. Were they handing out water, or were they just making sure that that no one disappeared?
They were hole punching our card. That means we checked in at all the checkpoints along the way and on the way back. I guess for when kids wind up missing, they can see, number of little balls of paper must equal number of holes punched, and they can tell how many kids are missing. I don't
Now,
know.
here's as a winner, what did you get for getting all of your holes punched?
I got a hot dog. Yeah, when we got back, we walked from Highland East to the lake. When I got there, it was just mayhem. People were running around, kids were screaming. There was a food fight. That was my sack lunch. They were throwing at each other because I didn't get lunch. And I just, like I said with Scott there in the interview, when we walked down 4th Street. Now, like I said, you can't get to the lake going down 4th Street now, because that tiny rickety wooden bridge has been burned through or caved in from the weight of a Volkswagen or something over the years. So there's only one or two roads that take you from more out there. Maybe just one, 27th Street. I'm not sure. It's been a while. So he's right. It did turn into a dirt road. And a 2-lane dirt road with 1,600 kids walking, down this road. And like I told him, there were little kids just standing around. There were some tears. There were older kids that coupled up and went out in the woods and did what high school people do out in the woods when there's nobody watching. Uh, Weed deals, probably some like the older kids. I remember when we were walking and it was like the Donner Party. I thought I was going to have to eat somebody. It was just terrible. And so I remember not being quite at the lake yet, and the crowds are getting thinner and thinner because the older kids are gone. They're already there. And I remember seeing the Moore High School track team in their shorts and their little tank tops running back, and just fresh as a daisy, looking at their watches like they always do, and like just jogging back, looking, top of the morning to you. And they're headed back because they're the first ones finished. And then, I don't know, it was sometime later, the junior high track team comes by, just nice day for a stroll. Okay.
Well, while you were playing the clip from your friend Scott, who's the teacher now, um, I pulled up Google Maps and looked, and that is not a short distance.
No, it's
That,
not.
yeah, I mean, one way would be daunting. There and back would be, I guess the word that comes to mind, criminal.
Well, I'll tell you this. I hear stories now, like with that sad violin music playing the Ken Burns movies, like these orphans were forced to walk to find. Oh yeah, really? Well, okay. It was ambitious for the school system to try that. I'll say that. Very few people remember it. There is a Remembering More Oklahoma website on Facebook or Facebook page, and I wrote on there. I said, does anyone remember this? I'm doing a podcast episode about this, and so from what I can gather, this happened at least 3 times
Oh wow.
because from what I could tell, I was in a very early incarnation of this really good idea. And so my buddy Scott Guidry, did I tell you that 4/5 of the town of Moore Gen X population is named Scott?
I'm starting to figure that out.
Yeah, Scott Guidry says, yeah, I remember we left from the community center, which is further than Highland East and East Hill, so they walked further. And then there's some people that I didn't know that, again, it's huge school system, who said, yeah, we did it from 4th Street at the JC's building. We left from the JC's building and went back there, which is next door to the crummy rundown grocery store, which is now the funeral home that did my parents' services.
Nice.
Dad's service was where the old meat counter was.
Oh gosh. Scott.
Yeah, it's that. A side note, that it was called Jerry's Foods. That was the place where I bought my first whoopee cushion when I was with my mom. I was in the second grade. I got a whoopee cushion out of there, and where I bought my first whoopee cushion was literally feet away from where they had my mother displayed before her service.
And
So-
where years before you'd be able to pick up a pound and a half of pork chops too, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's a real full circle moment.
Yeah.
Mary Herndon bought me a whoopee cushion just feet away from where we would have her memorial service where she was there. So that's a sweet memory.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
So why do you think that this has been erased from the history books? Why can you not find? Do you think it's been washed away, or do you think it's
No.
just such?
No, that's a great question. I don't think it's been erased. I think it was never entered. I think when we got back to Highland East, they said everybody's going to get a hot dog, and there's a guy standing out there and this big pot of boiling weenies, and people who still had the will to live went over there and got a hot dog to finish it off. So I remember eating my hot dog thinking, I remember thinking, golly, that was I don't want to do that again. I might. And so that's the attitude at the time. My sister got into the gym there at Highland East, found herself a quarter, and called Dad to come get us because it was over. Well, Mom answered, and she said, well, your dad's mowing. Hang on. Goes and gets Dad. And Dad said, well, they were so gung-ho about walking, just have them come on home.
Oh, he made you walk home?
Well, I see, it didn't make me walk home. I'm answering your question about why it wasn't chronicled with breathless alarm in the papers, because one of their concerned citizens, Mick Herndon, said, well, I mean, they like walking. They want to walk all day. Like, just they're right up there at the school. Come on home. And there's a certain that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
And so we walked home from Highland East, and
Now, how far is that?
I don't know. It was probably, man, I'm guessing, little over a mile, maybe. So,
Thanks, Dad.
yeah. So that was the carrot to get us. I think they thought, you know what? We'll tell them at the lake that if you make it back, we'll give you a hot dog. My sister has, she's got a story about this too. I think one of the things that stands out to me, and again, this will answer your question about why there wasn't a big hubbub in the paper. I remember being at school that next Monday, and the teacher said, "How did everybody enjoy your weekend?" And this ordeal barely got a mention. Like there were, I won't say several. There were a handful of kids in my class that did it, and they were like, "Yeah, we walked to the lake." And I remember, I think it was Miss Fuller. I remember Miss Fuller saying, "Oh, you don't say. My kid did that too." It's yeah, it's something. By the way, it's not even in Moore. Oklahoma City is like this. It's like you dropped a blob and just hit the map. It covers cities that are around it. More Oklahoma City goes. It covers both sides of Moore and certainly the north border. And so you walked
Yeah.
out of Moore and you're in Oklahoma City. So these kids were in Oklahoma City crossing Sunny Lane, Sooner, all those roads out there that went out there. So, and again, like Scott said, it goes down to like this 2-lane dirt road, and it was something. My best memory is literally the next day, like I said at school, where yeah, we walked to the lake, and so it didn't make the paper because um, they restocked the shelves at the grocery store with milk. Didn't make the paper. Oh, you don't
Yeah,
say.
got it. So, did you raise any money for this?
Probably. I think.
And what did they do with the money?
I imagine defended. Had some litigation. I don't know. I don't know what they did with it, but it's startling to think. I mean, I hope it helped build Apple Creek, the elementary school that I went to the next year when they opened the new school and got rid of us having to be crammed into that storage locker where I went to second grade. But like I told Scott, that's why we're so hardy. That's why this generation takes bumps and scrapes easily, because the ones of us that were soft are still out of the lake, lost and crying or dead.
Yeah, I got it. I've got some younger friends that have, I have my 2 daughters are adults now, so they're gone. But I got some younger friends that have younger kids, and when they do fundraisers at school now, this is how they do it. Scott, listen to me. They post a thing on Facebook that has like a calendar, and you pick a day as to how many dollars you want to give to their fundraiser. So of course the people who get in there early, they're picking like the first or a second, so they only give $1 or $2. And no one has to do anything except post something online and rely on the willingness and compassion of friends and family to do all the hard work for you. So I'm not sure what lesson that sends.
Absolutely not. I wouldn't be a part of any of that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
We did it the old fashioned way. We walked, so others didn't have to. I guess I could put it that way. But we didn't have to. They could have done something.
Or it could have been a lot shorter.
Well, I don't know what they did after that, because there were some zany things that happened. Like I have memory of some other stupid things that were pulled after that. We had some kind of Olympics. I don't know if that was a fundraiser. I'm sure, after I did it, they did it for a year. Of course, my buddy Scott said that they walked from the community center. I don't know. I mean, maybe they had kids removing asbestos from the gyms for a Saturday, or I'm not certain. But I do know later, like when my parents had a curfew for me in high school, I remember thinking, well, why? What do you sent me to the lake one Saturday so you could, watch TV and enjoy yourselves without the noise of the house.
Man, those were the days before any kind of cell phone, so that there was no way to track you other than calling your friends' parents,
Oh
and
my gosh.
those were nice days.
I haven't even considered that. I just remember that while I came up onto the lake there with a scraggling few. Um, my legs were hurting, and I saw all these older high school kids out there throwing Oreos at each other and running around screaming. And I thought, well, I was promised I would have some Oreos, and like nothing. So I found that fountain, that RV hookup water, and I drank some of it. I got my hole punched in my card. The kids started, milling out of there, and they went back. They were going to go walk back to get their hot dog, and so, and, oh, by the way, I got separated from my sister. Like,
Oh,
like,
nice.
like we were in the herd, and I went, I went past her. I didn't know, and I got to have her. I got to ask her about this and put her on here as well. But anyway, I'm beginning to think, the more I look back, that this generation was just built differently, and I'm beginning to wonder if a lot of these things existed outside of my little bubble there in central Oklahoma. Did they pull this from other schools?
I mean, I can tell some stories from growing up in the 70s and 80s that were horrific, but I can't think of anything that was criminal, like sending third graders on an unsupervised 13-mile hike.
Now, in their defense, I don't think this was open to kindergarten.
Oh, okay. Well, standards makes sense.
Right, right. So, they say you can go along the Chisholm Trail and see, like, you can still see like old remnants of wagon wheels and skulls, and you know I wonder if there's discarded hush puppy shoes out there, like by that burned out bridge.
You should recreate this walk, Scott.
I think I might get a drone and fly it from East Hills to the lake and back, and give an aerial view of just what a walk this
Yes.
was. Because to get out there, I, you'd have to drive and I guess go as far as you can, maybe Sunny Lane, I don't know, and then go up a couple of blocks or a couple of miles to 27th Street, then go over, and then come back down once you get past that bridge that's no longer there. And so I guess if you could do a time lapse and just get rid of that section, you would get an idea, but you wouldn't see. Now it's paved, it's 4 lane. There's big houses out there. It's grown up, and when you walk it, if you were to walk it now, you would think, "God, this is a long walk." It's good thing it's curved and there's sidewalks and
And landscaping.
bridges. Yeah, and cartoon Disney birds that land on your
Nice.
shoulder and bring you salad. It wasn't that way. So anyway, that's the mystery. That's what happened to me on a
So I
Saturday.
just want to make sure you were not assigned to a teacher. We're like, hey, get with your buddy, stay with your teacher, and then at certain checkpoints they would check to make sure that Scott and all of his people were with him. You were just set off on the go, and we'll see you in 6 hours when you get back to the spot for a hot dog.
I think, Eddie, I think the second one is correct. They could have intended for that first one to happen, but it was like corralling cats.
Got it.
Like, good luck finding Scott and his other dimwit buddies. Some are wandering around. Some, stopped at a convenience store there on, what do they have, 4th Street. Oh, there's nothing out there. Baptist Church, I think, on Sunny Lane. But no, that's impossible. And that's another thing. Has it just been memory hold? I called the city of Moore and I asked, "Do you have an archivist?" No. Okay. So I told her my story. She's a couple of years older than me. I think she's in my sister's graduating class. And she said, "I don't remember that. I don't have any memory of that." But I don't doubt it, because I was on the swim team. And they took us out to Lake Thunderbird for a
Mm.
fundraiser, dropped us off in the middle of it, and hoped we swam back to the shore. It really has. I'm surprised the coach wasn't out
Oh
there with like a
gosh.
pellet gun shooting at the water.
Boy,
Yeah.
times have changed.
Like I don't know. We turned out fine.
Oh my
Maybe that's
gosh.
why there's the general opinion that the generations behind us are soft, because maybe we made sure of it because we didn't want to have them doing the same thing.
Yeah, maybe the generations behind us are smarter and better. I don't know.
I
I guess time will tell.
don't either. I know that they. I don't have a good joke here.
That's fine. It's probably a good thing.
So that's it, man. That's my story, and that's how we used to roll in Cleveland County, Oklahoma.
Here's what's going to happen. You're going to have listeners hear this, and they're going to come behind this story, and they're going to add to and collaborate everything that you said, and you'll have to do a part 2 with people who have their own stories from the thing. It's going to be great.
I would love it. I would like to meet some of the children that were conceived that were on that, by the high school kids. That'd be neat to have a follow up of like I was conceived in a cow pasture on the way to Lake Draper. Well, presumably.
It should be right around 42 right now, so it should track. Make sure you check.
God. They should have their own Facebook page. The Bastards of Draper Lake.
Yes. That's a great book, an album title. I mean, there's so many things you could do with that.
Oh man. Oh, good Lord. All right, Eddie, I think we beat this to death. And really that's the point of all of these. Find something mildly interesting, talk it to death, and be gone.
And be gone. We're done with it. Well, Scott, thanks for having me on today. These stories are fantastic.
Appreciate it, bud.
Look, I told you already there's somebody else that remembers this. What do you got, Sue?
It was crazy. The first thing I remember after that is that I started off with you that day. Did we give up our Saturday for this?
Yes.
Oh, geez. Okay, so at least they could have let us out of school to do this. But anyway, so we gave up our Saturday, and I started off with you, walking with you, then ended up dead last because I was just the chubby girl with shorts on that were riding up and blisters on the back of my heels. And I just couldn't walk very well anymore after a little while. Of course, I saw everybody from the back, so I'm not sure what the checkpoints were because I don't remember them. They must have been gone before I got there.
I just remember when we were walking, I'm with all the little kids and the stoners and the burnouts, and they're just all like wandering around. It was mayhem.
Well, I distinctly remember getting in the back of a truck and them because somebody was going back to the school or something, and they saw me walking far behind. And so they picked me up and took me to the middle of the line. My fat butt ended up back at the back of the line again. And I think I ended up finally at the lake probably after everybody else got there.
It just sounds like a good time.
And I had no idea where my little brother was. No idea whatsoever. I think I found you at the lake.
I don't remember. I remember when we were at the lake, they corralled us all into this picnic area, and all the big kids were already there, and they were throwing the cookies and the punch and stuff.
We didn't have bottled water back then or anything. We didn't get anything until we got there.
Well, some of us got leg cramps and shin splints.
Oh, yeah, I remember having shin splints the rest of the next couple of days and blisters on the back of my heels. It was something that was different for us and something I thought, well, this is going to be cool. We'll raise money for whatever it was raised for. Had sponsors and everything. Well, I don't know how they did that money because if I got taken in a truck 2 miles up to the rest of the people. I don't know how they, how they calculated that, but
Well, that means Rick Trommel paid for those 2 miles.
yeah,
Whoever signed your list to sponsor you, people at church,
yeah, people at church
they
mostly.
they didn't know.
People at church, because I probably didn't get out in the neighborhood and walk and ask for. I probably just took it to church.
Lord. All right. Well, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. Someone else that remembers this really fun, good activity for the kids. Remember, stay tuned to the end of these. There's research, info, bloopers, rap battles, just a bunch of important crap. Remember to hit us up on socials at Free Nights and Weekends. The Facebook page announced a contest. Pretty cool. All you got to do is leave a comment. You'll be entered. We'll announce those in a couple of weeks. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday.
I don't know. I mean, I think, and honestly, it sounds believable to me because I could totally see somebody thinking that that's a great idea.
So funny.
It not going very well.